Only in America.
Only in America.
Only in America.
Only in America.
Only America.
Only in America.
Hi there, I am Ali Noorani and welcome to an Only in America episode that travels from Dayton, Ohio to Palestine, Texas to Vail, Colorado to Maricopa, Arizona. At each place we learn from police chiefs who are working to serve and protect the entirety of their communities. So today we look at an important element in any relationship, trust. Not how you trust your family or co-workers, rather the element of trust between local law enforcement and immigrant communities that keeps us all safe.
But he calls it relational policing, and that's really what it is. It really is. It's just building relationships with community. It's really getting to know people at a deeper level. And when you do that, you build trust. And so this is really for everybody, not just the Hispanic community or the immigrant community. When you build healthy relationships with people, when you really take the time to get to know them and listen to their concerns, you build relationships and you build trust.
From the National Immigration Forum, I'm Ali Noorani. I don't want to live in a sanctuary city. I want to live in a safe city. Safe cities are the ones where every cop on the corner can fulfill their oath to serve and protect every person in their community. The only way to do that is if the cop on the corner is not seen as enforcing federal immigration law. Then, and only then, will they earn the trust of the immigrant community. The Trump administration's enforcement strategy has strained the relationship between local law enforcement and the immigrant community. The fear of being arrested and deported has increased dramatically for undocumented immigrants who are otherwise law-abiding residents. That fear is no friend of trust. That fear pushes victims and witnesses of crime away from local law enforcement. And that fear is what leads undocumented immigrants to be preyed upon by criminals, which makes us all less safe. Because the fact is, when immigrants feel safe, we are all safer. The majority of local law enforcement leaders understand the importance of trust. They do not want to use their valuable resources taking on immigration enforcement responsibilities. They want to focus on the public safety threats that are critical to their cities and towns. Once local law enforcement establishes trust with immigrant communities, as Dayton, Ohio's police chief Richard Beal points out, good things happen.
So the policies developed over time were to develop confidence and trust in the immigrant community and to restrict some enforcement actions that really weren't helpful overall but had a particularly adverse outcome for some of our immigrant community members. During this 10 years, we've had some of the largest crime declines in a decade, and in fact a decade and a half. So we became significantly more safe under policies that respected our immigrant community members and established a working relationship with them to work toward public safety.
Police chiefs in smaller cities such as Palestine, Texas, Vail, Colorado, and Maricopa, Arizona have lots to say about trust with immigrant communities, how to earn it, why it's vital, and, most importantly, how to sustain it. As members of the Law Enforcement Immigration Task Force, this law enforcement trio has found ways to engage with their immigrant communities. When a chief arrives new to their city, he or she will likely check out the lay of the land by meeting with various constituencies and doing some homework. When Steve Stahl left Mesa, Arizona for the top job in the city of Maricopa, population 50,000, one of the first things on his mind was building bridges with different communities.
So when I went to Maricopa, it actually seemed very simple because the demographics were mostly Hispanic or Latino and African American, and a lot of Caucasian too, but they were out of town most of the day working in Maricopa County, where the Latinos and the African Americans were mostly still in town, and we'd stop and talk to them with no problems whatsoever. There was side conversations about should we talk to them, should we ask them, are they citizens, things like that. And we have some very clear training from our state in unless you have a reasonable suspicion, some reason to believe that they are here illegally, you don't even ask. You just see if you can help them, make their life a better day. What I'm trying to do as a chief is trying to get other organizations to help out and to come to Maricopa to provide resources because there are very few resources. So we don't have a hospital yet. We don't have psychologists, mental health institutions or anything like that. The city's only 15 years old, and the citizens there have the same problems that a big city has. We just don't have the resources, so it's our job to try to find those connections for the people without having too much police involvement.
So what you're trying to do is build a bridge between the police department and the immigrant community, but trying to find the resources to build that bridge.
Correct. And one of the biggest difficulties I'm having, and for me it's frustrating. Again, I came from the city of Mesa. We had a very strong Chiefs Forum made up of the African American Forum, the Latino Forum, the Clergy Forum, the Veterans Forum, all those specific groups. And I brought that with me to the city of Maricopa. And I have a very strong following and a very strong cooperation with the African American population. Very strong with the veterans, very strong with the Islamics, very strong with the teens and also the seniors. I can't crack through that Latino population. I cannot, and I've tried to reach out to the Catholic Church there to see if I can visit them and figure out what it is they want and how can I help them get what they want. It's very frustrating. It's like nothing I've ever experienced before, because usually the Latino population has been so welcoming of a police chief. Hey, we really need your help here. It's almost like they're trying to avoid me in Maricopa.
And over in the Lone Star State, after 21 years with the Dallas Police Department, serving a city of over 1.3 million, Andy Harvey became Chief of Police for Palestine, Texas, population 27,000. The son of an undocumented Mexican immigrant mother, Chief Harvey grew up in the Rio Grande Valley. His personal and professional experience underscores the importance of trust and his relationship with the immigrant community.
This town is about 20 to 25% Hispanic, mostly white, and then we do have about 15-20% African American. So that's kind of the breakdown of that city. When I arrived there, I was told, and I quickly found out that there was a need to really reach out to the immigrant community, mostly Hispanic, Mexican, and South American. Historically, they've been a very quiet segment of that community. So I knew that we had to reach out to them and get them engaged so that we can be better off as a police department.
And in the mountains of Colorado, the populations are different, but the dynamics are the same. For 17 years, Chief Dwight Henninger has lived his childhood dream of being a police chief in Vail, Colorado. Population 5,483. The California native grew up in Palo Alto and became a police officer in Orange County, including a stint in Laguna Beach.
And so we have two very distinct populations here. There's the guests who come from primarily Mexico City, who are the uber rich and are used to the best things in life and to getting their way. And then we have the service population that cooks and cleans here in the community, and very few of those folks actually live in Vail. They commute to work. So there's two pretty distinct different groups that are here in Vail, and I think the way we're successful in dealing with all of them is that we treat everybody the same no matter what their station in life is or where they come from.
Chief Henninger knew he had to engage to serve both the department and the Latino immigrant community. But it turned out he didn't have to reinvent the wheel. He relied on a model of alliances used by a neighboring Colorado county. When you first landed in Vail 17 years ago, how did you decide this is my strategy in terms of engaging the immigrant community that is part of Vail, whether as a guest or as staff?
Well, I think that the way that they were treating the guest population was good. And so it was really more about the service workers. And one of the neighboring communities at the time had a very bad reputation with the Hispanic community primarily. And, harkening back to my time in Orange County, it was pretty obvious to me that having established trusting relations with the immigrant community was extremely important for the long-term health of both the police department and the community. And I heard about a really great program that was going on in another county here in Colorado. And so we took that model and have applied it here in Vail County to try and build trust and relationships with the leaders in the immigrant community. And when we started, I think it was intended to be really all immigrant populations because we have a number of different service workers who come on different visa programs to work here. But it's really kind of evolved into really primarily being with the Mexican folks who are working here in Vail County.
What does that look like?
We formed the Vail County Law Enforcement Immigrant Alliance, and we've been meeting with those immigrant leaders on a monthly basis, and we get training together and we sit down and talk about what the issues are in our community and what law enforcement can do to help with those issues. Most of the folks that are participating in the group that are not law enforcement agencies heads are with some other service providers, so we look to find where those gaps are and try to work together to resolve those.
Chief Harvey and Chief Henninger also partnered with clergy to reach out to their constituents. Chief Harvey pointed out the similarity between policing and clergy, and how places of worship help law enforcement build trust among immigrants who might be wary of police.
Before the conversation, I was reading through some clips and I saw the Community Clergy Coalition that you've set up. What led you to take that step?
Well, again, right, it's about reaching out to people of influence in our community because they're the ones that know the people. They serve them. They pretty much do a lot what we do. There's a lot of similarities in policing and clergy. There really are. And so they're servants, obviously, and have influence and know their people. And so for me as a police chief, it's important to understand the real needs and issues and concerns of citizens. And I may not get that information all the time, but when I'm close to the clergy, they can confide in me and really give me some information that I really need to know, because I may think we're doing a great job, but that could be the other way around. And so I need to know and be connected to the community, and that's one of the ways that I think is a really beneficial way to do that, is to really get close to them. And what we do is meet once a month and talk about issues, and created a chaplaincy program, get them engaged as well. And then it's a prayer time. I open it up and they pray for the city, and really it's just community right at its best. And so when you build relationships with influencers, that's a very good thing because, again, right, they know their people, and it's just good business.
In those conversations, is it mainly the Hispanic clergy, or is it also white or African-American clergy?
No, it's all of them. Yeah, this is all inclusive. It's for everybody, and we have African-American, white, and Hispanic, and so that's the great thing about it, right? Let's get everybody on the same page. Let's get everybody in the same room, have some constructive dialogue. That's when things happen, and so doing that really gives me a better feel for the city, and I think it's good for them as well.
Support for the National Immigration Forum comes from the James Irvine Foundation, expanding opportunity for the people of California, and from the Carnegie Corporation of New York, established in 1911 by Andrew Carnegie to promote the advancement and diffusion of knowledge and understanding.
From the National Immigration Forum, I'm Ali Nirani. For years, the infamous Sheriff Joe Arpaio cast a dark shadow over the relationship between law enforcement and the immigrant community in Arizona. Even though the voters of Maricopa County ousted Arpaio in 2016, his demonizing of immigrants left a deep imprint on Arizona, making it hard for law enforcement leaders seeking stronger relationships with immigrant residents. This challenge presents itself in Maricopa, Arizona, where almost a quarter of the population is Latino. In this environment, Chief Steve Stahl worked hard to engage the immigrant community, and like Chief Harvey, he sees partnerships with faith leaders as a way to strengthen relationships.
The East Valley has yearly they have a breakfast and an awards ceremony where they get together and acknowledge and thank police officers and police leaders for their help and their assistance. The East Valley does that very well. Magdalena Schwartz is one of my good friends. I knew her in the city of Mesa. So it exists. I just can't get Maricopa to, as of yet. Yep. I'm not going to give up in any way, shape, or form. But as of yet, I can't get them to hook up with that East Valley group.
And you see that the faith community is a potential inroad.
Oh, I absolutely do. Especially with the Latino population. They have a very strong family bond and a very strong religious bond. And that's who they trust. And I want them to continue with that trust, but I want to be part of that trust. Yeah. And I want to be there to see how I can help. And if we don't have that conversation, I don't know how I can help.
For Chief Harvey of Palestine, Texas, community policing means understanding the needs of the community. In this way, immigrant residents see local police as a partner in their efforts to integrate into society, as well as the place to go if they are a victim of or a witness to a crime.
It's one relationship at a time. I love what Chief Acevedo's been saying lately.
He's going to be very happy you mentioned him.
I know. I've gotten to know him really well, and he's the one who kind of told me about this and got me involved in this, so I was very, very appreciative. But he calls it relational policing, and that's really what it is. It really is. It's just building relationships with community. It's really getting to know people at a deeper level, and when you do that, you build trust. And so this is really for everybody, not just the Hispanic community or the immigrant community. When you build healthy relationships relationships with people, when you really take the time to get to know them and listen to their concerns and take action and those kinds of things that people want to know and hear from you, you build relationships and you build trust. That's where it's at. So for the immigrant community or Hispanic community where I am, like I said, they haven't been engaged. And so for us to engage them, we use our influence as a police department in order to get people together. When it first started Unidos, it's that Hispanic outreach program, I called for the influential leaders, again, in the Hispanic community because they know and they have built trust within that segment of the community. And so when you influence influencers, then they can go out and then they trust them, and then that's how you get to them. So here's what I found. You build trust with that community by giving them information and helping their quality of life. So if they're not informed about things going on in the city, basic things that you and I may take for granted, like how do you pay your water bill? What do you do if you get a citation? What if you do, whatever? Know your laws. Some people don't know their laws, that kind of thing. You and I may take it for granted. But when you provide them information and resources, that goes a long way. So that's what helps build trust. And I got to tell you, things like we're having the mobile consulate, Mexican consulate coming from Dallas to Palestine. There's a mobile unit that comes and people can go to the consulate right there in our town where they don't have to drive to Dallas or another big city. And so that's kind of a big thing. Think about it. I mean, they can go talk about their immigration status, their passport, whatever. And when we provide those kinds of things as a police department, that goes a long way, and they know that we're looking out for their best interest. So that's where it's at right there.
There's also a lot of misinformation running through the immigrant communities as federal policies are implemented, retracted, or paused. Chief Henninger told me how they're dispelling rumors in Vail, Colorado.
The relationships we built 6-7 years ago helped a lot with the situation we're in now. One of the things we did do to try to dispel the rumor mill, which is alive and well and travels much faster than the radio here, is that we put together a Facebook page where we try to be able to dispel rumors as quickly as possible. The example I use pretty regularly is that there was a Federal Protective Services vehicle stopped at the Walmart recently. There's a McDonald's there, so I'm guessing that the officers at the McDonald's driving from 2 hours west here to go back to Denver, and that then there was a raid going on at Walmart, and there was no such thing. And so we then looked to find a way that we could communicate more quickly with the immigrant community here about what was going on. And so I think we've become pretty successful in being able to address these issues before the rumors get out of control.
It's all about the relationship development and being able to sustain it over the long term. It doesn't happen quickly. And if you don't put the time and the effort into those types of trusting partnerships, then things dissipate pretty quickly.
It's been obvious that the time was well invested. The fact that our executives from each of the law enforcement agencies participate in this alliance is super important. After President Trump came into office, we did put out a policy statement on how our officers and deputies would be working in the community and what kind of immigration enforcement actions we would take. And I think that has helped a lot because we followed through on what we said we were going to do. We made clear that we don't have control over what the federal authorities do, but we have control over what our officers and deputies do.
Finally, while so much of the debate is about the relationship between local law enforcement and Latino immigrants, Maricopa's Chief Stahl has led efforts to engage his city's Muslim community.
So let's look at the parallels, if you don't mind. So the Muslim community, for example, how did you develop that relationship?
That one's funny. I was only 6 months into my job, and there are 4 large events in the city of Maricopa throughout the year. And we have them, they're at the park, and everybody sets up booths and things like that. And there had been a newspaper article 2 weeks prior to this large event where it identified the mosque, local mosque in the city of Maricopa. And it was 2 doors down from where my PIO grew up. So I asked my public information officer, I said, did you know you had a mosque here in the city of Maricopa? No. And so I said, well, it's 3 doors down from where your dad lives. And he goes, wow, we need to go visit. Well, they were out at this large event, so I made it a point to go up and introduce myself, and Amar Abed was there at the table, and we shared cards, and I said, I have an Islamic forum, I want you to be on my forum, I want you to come to my meetings. And we've developed a relationship from there. And the state of Arizona has a really good Arizona Police Muslim Advisory Board. And we meet on a quarterly basis somewhere throughout the state. And we just have a very active police Muslim cooperative group in Arizona.
So yes, it is a challenge to build trust between local law enforcement and the immigrant community. Yet, There are thousands of local law enforcement taking the extra step to build relationships with the immigrant community. It is that work that makes all of us safer. So to the men and women who are that cop on the corner who serve and protect everyone, regardless of immigration status, thank you. I want to thank Chief Beal of Dayton, Chief Stahl of Maricopa, Chief Harvey of Palestine, and Chief Henninger of Vail for taking the time to talk about the work they do to serve and protect the entirety of their communities, immigrant and non-immigrant. For more on the Chiefs and the Law Enforcement Immigration Task Force, visit our website, immigrationforum.org. And while you're there, please subscribe to Only in America. Only in America is produced by Regina Medina and Emily Chow. Our sound editors are Joanna Taylor and Megan Wetmore. Kathleen Farrell is executive producer, and me, I'm Ali Nirani. Thank you so much for listening to Only in America, and I will talk to you next week.